ability to defend itself, and that's not going to change.
Never? I want to be an actor.
So why don't you act like a good sister and get me some of those baby back ribs?
I want to be a director now. Let's try a scene where you go get your and action.
And cut.
A lot of drama on this set.
Action.
And cut.
Maybe I'll just go get wings for everybody.
Melissa Gilbert here. I've had a hard time sleeping since my leave.
Okay, I'm here. Yes, I am. It's 10:41 a.m. and partly cloudy. Boca Raton. Of course, it's 89 degrees outside on my trusty patio, and it's 68.2 degrees inside my studio setting here. Yeah, it was 8 o'clock in the morning when I created these graphics, as you can see. 9.5 seconds passed. You see that right there? The old reverse pinch. My pulse was 92. At 7:21 a.m., you can see the little graphic. And my blood oxygen was 90, which is that's a little on the low side, averaging roughly 90%. It says 89.7. Yeah, the old trusty Apple Watch. Hup, there's Jimmy on the beach with a flag. Memorial Day, Veterans Day, you name it. And here I am, in living color. Let me switch cameras. There we go. Because I like my like that over there. I like my images on the left side of the screen, and I'm over here on the right side of the screen because I'm always right. Sometimes more right than others. Well, the big question of the day see that image right there? Apple's iPhone launch event is set for September. Oh, the headline left off the most important number, the 9th. And it's, I think, the first time since they've been having these launch events that it's on a Monday. And September 10th. There's something happening on September 10th that made them not want to conflict with September 10th. The gun that almost ripped America apart, meaning I guess they all look very similar. I have one that looks very similar to this. It's hiding in my over there. It shoots 9mm. This shoots the NATO round. You know, I shoot 9mm. You know, I got a bunch of 9mm Glocks, and I think, you know, so I did that a long time ago. You know, where I had a couple of revolvers, and they were you know, 3.57s. So that's what I calibrated the rifle in. Marilyn bought it for me for something. Birthday, I guess. So in modern days, that was like 30, 40 years ago. So in modern days, in the last 15 years, I basically you know, center myself on 9mm. Let's see what's in here. That's the 5.7. Oof! There's a 9mm. I'll show you. This is 100. For those that are familiar with weapons. Here's my favorite. I'll just bring it out. Close this back up. Put it back under here. There we go. I'll show this to you. Produces scope full screen. Remember, this is a simulcast. Twitter Live, Facebook Live. I need a little help getting this open. There we go. There we go. There's a reason for everything on my little see my little logo there. I had a commercial artist. I told him this is what I want, and that's what he came up with. And I said, "That's perfect." So you can see this is jacketed hollow point. High velocity, and I think it has a muzzle velocity of, out of a handgun, of 1,350 feet per second. So that makes it supersonic. But when it's fired out of a, you know, a long gun, you know, with a barrel, 16.5-inch barrel. Here it is. Here's the jacketed hollow point. You can see it. Of course, you can't see it because it's out of focus. So I'll put it in focus. Yeah, look at that. A little twist on the old lens. See, look at that. That's pretty good, huh? You can see that's why they call it a hollow point, because it's got a hollow point. But you see these cuts all the way around? Well, when it comes through the rifling of the rifle, it's spinning at a high velocity. And of course, the gunpowder pushes the bullet out. But when shot out of a rifle barrel as opposed to you know, the specifications are this shoots at 1,350 feet per second out of a 6-inch barrel. But out of a longer barrel, all those compressed gases, which create about 50,000 pounds per square inch of pressure, it forces that bullet out of the rifle at over 2,000 feet per second. Some say it's like 2,400 feet per second. So that's a supersonic bullet. Travels very fast. It's 100 and, what did I say, 135 grains. So it's not the lightest bullet in the world. Oh, gosh. Jacketed hollow point, 115 grains. Sorry. 1,300 feet per second. Out of a handgun. And you add another 1,000 feet per second if it's being shot out of a rifle. So it's about 2,300 feet per second, which is real fast, which means when it travels, it won't drop from the gravity as fast. So you get a little more range out of it. Like 200 yards. It's still supersonic at 200 yards. 200 yards is 600 feet, round numbers. Remember when our president was almost hit? He was 130, 140 yards away. So that's about 400 feet. So with this high velocity, it's a smaller bullet, not as much energy, but if at 200 yards, if you shot a gallon jug of water, the whole gallon, the whole jug explodes, because this bullet is traveling very fast, and it's got those cuts, in the tip. As soon as it hits something, like a jug of water, at 1,000 feet per second, it just explodes. Watermelon just explodes. Hickok. You can look it up. Hickok.com. Hickok 35 or Hickok 36. I forget. He shoots, or you go to YouTube and do a search for Hickok. He's got a whole bunch of YouTube videos where he has an outdoor shooting range, and he's got targets and things hanging all over the place, up this hill behind him. That's goes from 50, 100, 150 yards away, and you hear him clank, clank, clank. But he test fires and gives his opinion. He handles a gun and blah, 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 and goes through the machinations of, self-defense weapons and so forth. So I'm a handgun enthusiast. I have probably 10 devices. One rifle I can't find. It's somewhere. I'll be god darned. Maybe I gave it to one of our kids. I meant to ask Daniel if I gave him a rifle. I have a feeling I didn't. But I'll be darned. I can't find it. And I know we didn't leave it behind, because Danny went through the apartment. We moved from 801 to 812. I have a feeling that rifle went down in the storage closet downstairs on the third floor. We have 2 storage bays. So all the stuff that doesn't fit in the apartment is down there. We should really take some of these cases and move them down there, so that there's a little more closet space up here. And since we don't go all the time for that stuff, we might as well put it in storage. Marilyn says, well, why don't we get rid? Man, you can't get rid of this stuff. Well, we haven't seen it, and it's been there for 12 years, and we haven't been down there to even look at it. Oh, God. And this was all the, when we moved from 384, we had all these, let me turn the background noise down. There we go. I'm like competing with my background music. My epidemic, instrumental, royalty-free It's like in the background, like you're in a dentist's office. Yeah, let's calm that down just a little bit. There we go. Do I have it set up right here? Yeah. There we go. Anyway, so I have 330 round grips. 9mm, of course. For target practice, if you're going to play, you go to a range and you're going to beep, 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 beep. We should really do that. The kids like to do it, and I like to do it. And it's an indoor range, and you can bring all your things. I think you got to buy their ammunition. You pay for the time, like an hour or whatever you want. You make a reservation for it, like you make a reservation for dinner. It runs all day long and all night long. From like 10 or 11 a.m. to 8 or 9 p.m. I think it's down on Power Line Road somewhere. 1800 block of Power Line Road. Okay, we know now that September 9th is going to be Apple's iPhone launch event day. And it starts at 10 a.m. Pacific time, which is 1 p.m. Eastern time. And I have a little button, I think, on this device right here to watch it on, or it might be in this one here. To watch it on YouTube. You can watch the launch event on YouTube Live. I'm broadcasting on YouTube Live. The @ sign, not the handle, whatever you call it, at FAU4U. At F, like Florida. FAU, the number 4U. FAU, Florida Atlantic University. I've been adjunct faculty there for 20 years. And I came up with this little FAU4U deal for my handle on Facebook. It's also the same handle on YouTube. And it used to be my handle on Twitter, but they've blocked it. They said I did something wrong, and they just freaking canceled the account. I wrote them a letter, an email, and they haven't answered me. What the heck is wrong with it? And so I had to just, stop using the account. So I lost my handle. I wonder if I can get it back. Anyway, so on Twitter, my handle is Jim W 5596 at capital JIM, capital W 5596. So what's the 5596, you say? Well, if you had one of these old digital telephones, in the keypad in your handheld, isn't it? And next to the number 1, it goes ABC. And next to the number 2, it goes DEF, and so forth. Well, 55 is JI. So 5596. So that's the W. JLWM. 5596. JLWM for Maryland. So 5596. JIMW. It's a small I, a small N, a capital J, and a capital W. You can see it up on the, what do you call it up here? That's streaming. It keeps streaming over and over and over again. So, and also you can go to 416-1100.com, which is my phone number, .com. to look at all the images we have stored on there. There's about, a bunch. I think 400,000 images. We have 26 million visitors from 150 countries. So that site gets a lot of visual activity of people looking at the photos. We have all kinds of photos. You can spend, 10 minutes at that site looking at things, or you can spend all day. Every time Marilyn and I or somebody, goes out and takes pictures, particularly of a sporting event, we create a gallery in there and dump all the images. We cull all the images, meaning get rid of the El Stinkos, and then we image enhance, 30 or 40 of them, so that they're what I would consider publisher quality, meaning colorization and setting the amplitudes of the entire frequency range of the image, which is called levels. I use 5 or 6 of the Photoshop tools that are housed in I do all the image editing on my iPad because Apple has created a marvelous device, this Apple Pad, and when you couple it with a, what do you call it? Their newest keyboard. I mean, you basically have a computer with a keyboard with a touch screen. Apple won't do that with their iPad Pros, but it's essentially done with their iPad because the capabilities. Let me put this back in focus. I'm sorry, I had it in focus for close-ups, and now we can focus it. It's a manual focus lens, which I like because I can, focus it, so with a automatic focus, every time I move around, the lens is, gets confused on what it should focus on. So I switched the cameras out of here to a manual focus, so I can, there's my little box of bullets. There's, I think 20. Yeah, that's what that 20 is for. There's 20 of them in here. And it's lead with a copper coating. Yeah. Anyway. I got, in this little room we got here, I probably got 1,000, 2, 3, probably have 3,000 or 4,000 rounds. So I'm armed and dangerous. I have a little cold, so excuse me for coughing every once in a while. It's nothing serious. I went to my cardiologist yesterday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Had a little tussle with my primary care doctor because he forgot to issue the referral so I could see my cardiologist. Primary care has to issue a referral. That's what happens when you're in a HMO. And I don't think there is a PPO with Humana. So my cardiologist said, you have to get off the plan you're on with the Medicare Advantage. He said you need to get out of that and go into like AARP and get the supplemental, and that's the only way you're going to avoid all this referral stuff. And you get Plan D and it covers just about everything, or Plan F. It's going to cost you $300 a month, and that's it. You have to do it. and it covers all your, your insurance needs, whether you're in a hospital. It's very. I asked him. I said, so what should I do? I mean, this HMO PPO stuff, all these. I don't know anything about this insurance stuff, but you need to know about this stuff because your life depends on it. All right, producer, introduce my. Yes, there we go. Now we got that back again. Yeah. Okay. So let's see. There's a suggestion that iPod Pro 3 might be coming out. AirPods 4, AirPods Pro 3, and AirPods 4 might get revealed at the Apple September 9th event. Okay, that's a possibility. I'm interested in, the iPhone 16, which is supposed to have an improved camera with a 45 megapixel imager, I think made by Sony. And as for the ultra wide camera, they have 3 cameras in the back, which, it looks like that. Right now, this is keeping track of the fact that I've been on air for 26 minutes, and I haven't even talked about what I want to talk about. But I'm getting around to it. So, I finally figured out what kind of ball they have with pickleball. Because, you see them out there, and, you can take a tennis court, and reline it, put new lines down. Because a pickleball court is about half the size of a tennis court. So everybody's, that's in the real estate business that has, a couple tennis courts or 8 or 9 or 10 tennis courts. It can be 20 pickleball courts. Well, here's the pickleball. It's what I used to know as a wiffle ball. You see that ball? It's about the size of a baseball, but it's got this material that is, a high density polyethylene, looks like. This happens to be a yellow one, but you can see the hole as I do a reverse pinch. Back a long time ago, we had wiffle balls. So you could, whack a wiffle ball across a regular tennis court. The ball was smaller. It was, smaller than a tennis ball, but larger than a golf ball. This sucker is about the size of a tennis ball. Okay, but it's high density instead of a rubber with a felt cover and pressurized to 15 psi. This is not pressurized. It's just a high density polyethylene, perforated, as you can see, with the holes that have been drilled in it all the way around. And they whack that across. I was wondering how come they don't just slam it. They seem to be, throwing it in the air and they go back and forth. I mean, like it's badminton. I don't know. I finally saw some players out there that were, giving it a good bop. But so what this does is, so the difference between tennis, I played a lot of tennis, and I became conservatively a good B+ tennis player. I wouldn't call myself an A. If someone said, "Oh, you're better than a B," then I'd be A minus minus. I'd be just on the very, very low edge of A. I don't classify myself as an A because I've seen A players, and they're, right close to being a professional player. So I'm a B player, B plus. Marilyn is a good B plus. She's got a very impressive backhand. She get that, bam! Oh my God, she was really good. Now we're in our 70s, so tennis is a memory because you can't run around. Your ankles and your knees just don't have the strength that we used to have. We played good doubles together. I mean, we were a mean team. I'm a left-handed, she's a right-handed. So when we got set up on the court, woo! And I played pretty well. Forehand, backhand, didn't matter. I was, had as a lefty, I had a good shoulder muscles and forearm muscles. So, I really could hit the tennis ball. I had a serve that was almost, for regular club tennis players. It was hard, I played tennis with a couple of former star football players. So they're big guys, I'm not big guy. I'm average sized guy. And they couldn't return my serve. So I played doubles with Caesar Tini, who was a former professional soccer player. So everyone is a professional athlete except for me. But I happen to be a good tennis player at one point in time. So when we played doubles tennis, Caesar Tini and I were teammates, and the other two football players, I mean, they were like, Bear Bryant, really good football players. So when it was my turn to serve, they couldn't, the other team, they couldn't return the serve. They never put a racket on the ball. I would hit what is called an American twist. So an American twist, you kind of hit, looking at this ball right here, if you can see my finger. As a lefty, I'd hit the ball right here on the top. I hit the ball at, which would say 10 o'clock, if this was a clock. I'd hit it right up there. And so when I come down and hit that ball, it puts a spin on it this way. So when it hits the surface of the court, it jumps right. I mean, oh my God. So it has a high spin and it jumps right. So when it hits the court, it bounces very high and to the right. So a player over there, they're trying to figure out how to, put a backhand on that. Well, they can't do it. They couldn't put their racket on it. The ball, it hit the line and go so far right, they couldn't get over there fast enough. And then they, after a couple of those, they'd move over to the right. So next time I'd serve, well, then I'd hit it to the left. Oh God, it was. They're all real good tennis players, and I'm like a B tennis player. They're all A tennis players, because these professional athletes, they can play any sport. You put them on a billiard table, they can, run the rack. You put them on the tennis court, and they're hard to play with. They're just so good. And then it was Jimmy. It was, it didn't really belong with these three. Caesar said, okay, I'll take him. That's how I got on his team. When we're all standing up there trying to figure out who's going to play with who, the four of us. And so I'm just standing there with my racket and, trying to be polite. And all the other guys, they looked at each other and said, I don't want him. I don't want him. So Caesar said, all right, I'll take him. That's how I got on his team. So he would serve, and you go back and forth, and I forget who would win. Then it was my turn to serve. I was like the fourth. I was like the last one to serve. And they're all looking at me wondering, is this kid going to be able to hit it over the net? This kid, I was like 40 years old. We're all in our 40s, Caesar Tini, a former soccer player, and owned Donatello's restaurant. This is in Tampa. And, all right, I'll take him. That's how I got on Caesar. That gives you an idea what they thought about my athletic ability. He just looked like he was a banker. What the hell does he know about professional sports? Whoops. Not much. Oops, just spilled my tea, sorry. Let's clean up the mess. There we go. Oh, thank God I had a lid on that. That would have been, tea, warm tea with cream in it. We don't want that all over the place. Italian, I'm not Italian, but I'm always waving my arms. Anyway, so I'll take them. That's how I got on Caesar's team. And so when I served, I'd throw the ball up nice and high. I played a lot of tennis, and I played always with people that were better than me. So that sharpened up my skills. But I practiced with one guy that was a neighbor who was a really good player. I'm just a B player. So we would practice, like 2 hours, 3 times a week at night. One of these hard courts, and we'd play 21-point games. Instead of 15, 30, 40 love, this was, we played sets like it was, ping pong. So we played 21-point games and 6-game match. So instead of 3, we played 6. And it was 21 points instead of 4. So forget 15, 30, 40 love. It was 1 and 2 and 3. You got to win the game by 2. And, oh, jeez. So when you're serving that kind of a game, you became a pretty good server. And you wanted to serve good because you didn't want the guy on the other side to shove the ball down your throat. If you gave him a sissy serve, you get slaughtered. You just cover yourself up because, a good player is going to aim at you. Forget about, fair play. Oh, well, that. Jeez. So, anyway, so one guy served, the other guy served, and then it was my turn to serve. And I'm standing there, and I'm seeing these 2 big-ass football players on the other side of the court, and I figured, okay, just serve it. Don't worry about it. You've got a pretty good serve. You're well practiced. All your body parts are moving pretty good. You're 40 years old or 38 or it was 1980. Yeah, I was like 38. So I'd serve the ball. Bam. Poor Curtis, he couldn't put a racket on it. The ball went right by him. All right, 15, and we get over into the ad court. I'd step over into the ad court. Caesar would cross over and be on the other side. And Caesar's all ready, because he's figured they're going to shove it down my throat. So after that first serve, Caesar looks over his shoulder back at me and says, "Who the hell is that masked man?" Yeah. It was really funny. So now I'm serving the next one, wham! Oh, God. He didn't put a racket on it. And then Caesar looks back at me and says, "What the hell? Who the hell did I sign up with?" It was 15, 30, 40 love game. no one touched my serves for the whole, 3-set thing. And of course, the wives are over there fooling around, making cocktails and getting the picnic baskets out. And every once in a while, they kind of watch us play. And Marilyn's looking over, watching me serve. She'd have to look away because it was so embarrassing because these guys couldn't touch the ball. So we won the tournament, so to speak. And all these big athletes, and Jimmy Caesar puts his arm around me and says, "God damn it, son. I didn't know what I bargained for here. I think I won. I think I got the bargain." And we're all walking around like you're the loser. You ain't the loser. You're the only one out here that served, an untouchable ball. Never seen anything like it. Yeah, so I felt good about that. Anyway, so that came to memory because we're looking here at this oversized wiffle ball, which is the pickleball. And someone whacked the pickleball and jammed it up into the chain link fence. That'll give you an idea how the size of the pickleball. Anyway, so that's the big thing. So why some of the older people like pickleball is that you can keep yourself planted with your feet in a position on the court because you don't have to run around that much. The court is a lot smaller. It's like half the size of a regular tennis court. And since everyone's whacking this stupid wiffle ball, I guess it doesn't travel quite as fast because, the ball has those holes in it and it interferes with the aerodynamics of the ball. And, when you hit a wiffle ball, you can whack it and the ball, doesn't go as fast as if you were whacking a tennis ball. Because if you give a good shot on a tennis ball, that thing can, go 100 miles an hour. I don't think you can get a wiffle ball to 100 miles an hour. You'd be lucky if you get it to 50 miles an hour. So it was more, you're swinging back and forth and you can keep your feet planted and you don't have to do a lot of running around because the court isn't that big. So you can play doubles wiffle ball or pickleball. I would call it wiffle ball. Let's go play wiffle. And the racket is a big solid, looks like a big ping pong racket. No strings. So it's a light wood, and I think it can have a surface on it, to make it spin or whatever. Well, I'm not too sure what the surface is. The surface might be, what you would have on a ping pong racket. No strings, solid material, either wood or plastic. I think most of them are made out of wood. I haven't actually touched a pickleball racket, but you're playing wiffle ball out there. But you're getting outside and you're hitting it, and you can play with other people and socialize with pickleball. I think it's a big craze, right? It didn't craze me that much. All right, what is this coin thing I got up here? Ancient black stone seal from the First Temple period, bearing the name of Phalo Hebrew, and an image of Mesopotamian-style winged figure that is found in Jerusalem near the Western Wall. It's amazing, isn't it? The Israel Antiquities Authority revealed on, Thursday. So I did a little image of it. I grabbed that image and I made it so that it's a little bit clearer so you can see that guy. Isn't that amazing? I found it in the sand near the west wall of Jerusalem. So you can't quite tell what these markings are. Yeah, but at one time, I mean, this Israel Antiquities Authority probably knows the seal, which doubled in function as an amulet, is the only province evidence ever found. Wow, isn't that amazing? Somewhere from Syria to Egypt, or imagery of the Mesopotamian winged, and then I cut off the story because it wouldn't fit on my screen. There's a whole big story about it, so you can you can pick up this information and put it on your search engine and find out all about that. It was just discovered, so it's pretty new news. This is not the headline that I was going to talk about. Somehow or other, the FAA has told SpaceX, hold on a minute, before you launch the Polaris Dawn commercial spacewalk, because I don't know, there was something about what was going on with their launch procedures, and when it didn't seem to follow protocol approved by FAA, so they just said, hold on a second, let's compare notes and find out why an alarm went off with the FAA. But other news with the FAA is they have a joint venture with Boeing, and they created a I have to go back in time here. Starliner or something like that. I hate to speak from the seat of my pants. But they launched up there. Here it is. There's just a bunch that was supposed to go up. And that's the Polaris Dawn. That's the thing that's on hold for a minute. I'm sure SpaceX will fix it up. Here, I guess this is it right here. This is the capsule that was launched recently, and the FAA, it's supposed to be an 8-day mission, which is now 68 days, round numbers. They went up to 75 days, sorry. And these two astronauts are basically stranded in the space station because they have no way of getting back. Because the Starliner, doodad right here, has problem. It's got helium leaks in 2 or 3 different places. Sometimes they use helium in these things, go and it makes it turn around. So it's they use these jets, and it's high pressure in a tank, or 2 or 3 tanks linked together, and it powers jets that are strategically placed all around, top, bottom, and so forth, so it can pitch and yaw and rotate when it lines itself up to where this big, and it's a big, it's big. This is probably 4 feet across from here to here, so that astronauts can go through that hole when it links up to the space station. And it has a seal, some kind of a silicone seal. I don't know what the material is, but something that can withstand the temperatures and the vacuum of space. so it wouldn't be some kind of aerated rubber, because in the vacuum of space it would expand out of shape and pop, you know. So it'd have to be some kind of a dense silicone material, some other synthetic. Anyway, so those thrusters, which is what they call them, are malfunctioning. Well, you need those thrusters, you know, to line yourself up. You know, so you have the proper, you know, and then it moves up towards the space station. And at one point, the first time they started to line up with it, they said, "Stop, pull back," because they were coming in at the wrong angle or too fast. But it was one of the first times they actually had to tell, you know, an approaching vessel to stop. And then on the second attempt, they could actually get launched, and it's sealed up, and they, you know, so it's attached, you know, at one of the ports on the space station, and it's going to sit there because they've decided the fact that these jets are unreliable, and they're afraid if they put the astronauts in there and use that capsule to go back to Earth, and you know, you have to be very strategically angled. You know, the software is very precise nowadays. So, you know, before it used to be like a joystick thing, and you know, these guys had to practice for months and months on end to get control of that, because if you slip up and the angle is too shallow, it'll bounce off the atmosphere, and then you'll be off into space. And you don't want that, because then it doesn't have enough propellant in it to basically stop, turn around, and come back, you know, to the atmosphere. So you'd be off into spacedom, and that'd be the end of you. You know, eventually you just run out of food, water, oxygen, whatever. So the angle of attack when it's coming back into the atmosphere, so that you can, you know, then, you know, it has, you know, these parachutes that come out and so forth, and it lands either on water or on the sand or somewhere. So that angle of attack is very important. And of course they time when they start that whole procedure, because they want it to land in the Gulf of Mexico. Well, you got to do that, and you know, the computer determines, you know, just when you have to start that procedure, because if you're traveling at 17,000 miles an hour, so that's relatively fast, you know, you know, faster than a speeding bullet. I think a bullet travels at about 5,000 miles an hour. So 17,000 miles an hour is like 4, 5, 6 times faster than a speeding bullet, as they say. Remember they used to say that about Superman when he was flying with his cape. Anyway, so the NASA people with the Boeing people, engineers, you know, in the, I guess, the Johnson Space Center, wherever they met, you know, over the last 2 months, because this thing, they're supposed to go back in 8 days. Well, they found out these helium things were leaking on their way up. Unfortunately, most of their propulsion to catch up to the space station was due to the stage 1 booster, and the second stage, Merlin, or what kind of engine they had, you know, that was the second stage, you know, rocket engines. Not these little ones that So once that's all done, they jettison those, and then now the capsule is ready to get in the proper position. The first and second stage rocket engines were the ones that got it up to 17,000 miles an hour, and because of the timing of when they launch and so forth, that's why they say they have a launch window, because if they launch outside of the window, then they're either going to be too far ahead of the space station or too far behind, because there's not that much propellant in the third stage, which in a sense would be, the capsule itself. And those engines don't have the capability of, making big corrections. They can make little corrections, and then, they come up right behind the space station, and, within 1 foot per second, even though this thing is traveling at 17,500 miles an hour around the Earth. Every 90 minutes it's circulating around the Earth because it's going so fast. The Earth is a big thing. A big baseball. Anyway, the NASA people decided it's too risky. We're going to send, it's basically an autopilot. So we're going to send our Starliner capsule back to Earth without any occupants. And you will wait for the, because it just so happens SpaceX is bringing up a bunch of stuff, test equipment and supplies in February. So when it comes up in February, we'll send you up with 2 new spacesuits, because your spacesuits won't work in the capsule engineered by SpaceX. So you'll get SpaceX spacesuits measured to your dimensions, because we know what that is, because we have the dimensions that we use to create the Boeing NASA spacesuits, which are ugly blue things. SpaceX, their spacesuits look like, like clothing with a helmet. I mean, they're beautiful and they're pressurized. They have all the capability, but when you're trying to make something as a private company that's well engineered and desirable to look at, and Elon Musk is, a taskmaster, and they come up with a design and say, no, that's terrible. Make it look like this. And you'd have a sketch artist there, and all of a sudden the engineers would go back to the drawing boards and create a spacesuit that looks like what he wants it to look like. And a helmet. Or, when you see the finished product, you say, of course, that's the way it's supposed to look. Just like it looked like in the comic books, 50 years ago. Amazing, isn't it? So this thing goes over there to cover the keyboard. Because it's very bright, and it, I don't know why this thing is hopping up and down. What's going on with the terminal? All right, we'll just say okay on that. That comes up all the time. And we'll just get rid of that. There we go. Okay. So we're 59 minutes into this session, and we're stuck on Starliner. Let's get out of that. That's like old news. That was August 21st. This is the 30th. Let's get out. You look at all these pictures. This is what the birds. I had a bird like that. That went away. I had a bird like that because of the Schnozzola. I remember Jimmy Durante. I called him Schwartz. With a nose like that, what else you gonna call him? Butch? I don't think so. He's a Schwartz. But it was nice to have a parrot, you know, you make friends with them, and you make friends with it, and it makes friends with you. And I used to have him on my shoulder all the time. I had his wings pruned a little bit so he wouldn't fly off, fly away. Um, he could flap real hard and go maybe 10 feet, but he didn't have enough feathers to really get into free flight. So he knew that. I knew that. And he knew I knew. And I know that he knew. So I'd go out and when I'm doing the yard, and I'd have him, he'd hang on my collar. We had one foot on my collar and the other foot on my shoulder. And we walk around, the house. I'd be pulling weeds out and whatever the hell I'm doing. And I'd take the bird out with me. It was quite a, I had him for like 10 years. And then some raccoons broke into my patio and grabbed the bird and ate him. I was heartbroken. Goddamn natural species and where we lived. I never thought they would actually break into my screen thing and get my bird. That's terrible. Yeah, that was terrible. I just wasn't smart enough to know that was a risk. Anyway, if I ever get a bird again, I'll be more careful about that. Not that I have any raccoons on the 98, 100 feet up in the 8th story of this multifamily facility I live in here for the last 12 years. No, I like it. We're real, this is our home base here. And the kids visit us all the time up there, and we got a nice gym. They like our gym better than their gym, so they're over here all the time exercising on our stuff. And since they're 2 siblings, which I have acknowledged in the building management here, they know the guards and there are security people downstairs, and they've got a fob, so they just fob their way up to the 5th floor where the gym is. And then when they're done doing that, they come up and sit down and yak with us, either before or after their workout, or they just come over and visit. Whatever. Okay. August 27, I'm looking at some of these photos. Here's, let's look at this one. There you go. So this is Pennsylvania, 47.5%, 47.7%. So the MOE this is an average of polls. So the MOE is probably, if you had a blended average, maybe 2. So a little tighter because you've got a 3 weeks worth of polling that's been all homogenized together. 47.5 to 47.7. So Pennsylvania is a statistical tie, which I hated statistics when I took it. Let's see what this one is. Georgia, 47.1 to 48.1. So there's a little bit more leaning for Trump, but still inside the margin of error. So it is a statistical tie. What's this one say? This is Wisconsin. That should have a little doodad. Oh, hard. It should be a favorite image. This is up till August 19th. So this is before what I might call the JFK factor. I'm sorry, the RFK Jr. factor. So if RFK joining Trump has any influence, that would be after August 19. Okay, because that was just a few days ago. That might be August 26 or 7. So until we get, past Labor Day, when you look back at the summary of a bunch of polls dating the third week in August to let's say, the first week in September. You do that statistical blend and see what the numbers are to see if there is an RFK Jr. factor that has helped Trump, or has it helped Harris? My guess is since Harris' campaign was trying to do, they dispatched, 50 or 100 lawyers all over the United States simultaneously to get him off, to interfere with the state legislatures to get them off the ballot in their states. Like they'd have lawyers over in Colorado to make sure RFK Jr. would not be on the ballot in California and in Colorado and in this state, that state, Arizona, there. And they were successful in keeping him off several ballots in deep blue states. Now that doesn't affect, so the people that were polling for RFK Jr. Were certainly antagonized with the Harris, Walz campaign efforts to keep RFK off the ballot in states all over the country, so that he actually, and if you're not on the ballot, you can't run for president. So that was, like a shot at the knees, if you're making a football analogy. You tackle him at the knees. If you keep him off the ballot, then you certainly can't lose to him, because there's no place for you to vote for that person. They're trying to keep him off the ballot, so you wouldn't even see him on the ballot. And, not every state agreed to that. And when he got into red states, those legislatures were probably red-leaning and wouldn't permit that kind of legislation to go on in their particular state. So they were unsuccessful in preventing RFK Jr. from being on, the ballots in Florida and Alabama and so forth, and South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia. There's a little sign up there on the swing state. Donald Trump is a slight favorite for the first time since August 3rd. And that's because of all this stuff that's been going on with the Democratic committees and so forth. So that would mean that Harris is a slight underdog. Well, that's good news. That's as of today. Trump has another rally in Pennsylvania at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time this afternoon. A Trump Pennsylvania rally. I tell you what, these guys work for the job they're trying to get. Wisconsin presidential preference, Harris is 48 and Trump is 47.6. So it's a 147, 48, 1 point advantage for Harris. So that's inside the margin of error. Well, everything is so tight. So over the next 2 weeks, things will settle down. The Harris honeymoon, due to the Democratic convention, will calm down, and people will actually settle down into finding out what the hell these candidates, stand for. Because in 2 weeks from next week, there's going to be early voting, starting in, North Carolina and several other states. So everyone's got to figure out what the hell's going on here. PDQ, as they say. Pretty damn quick. Pretty darn quick. PDQ. So in the next month, we're going to see how these things are going to settle out. Now, polling, generally Trump performs better in the ballots, in the actual voting, than what happens with this polling. At least that's what the 2020 election was like. That was the last time he was on the ballot. And he underpolls, by several points. So if he's like a break even with somebody, like here in Wisconsin, he may win that by 1 point. But the statistical average right now is he's behind 1 point. Well, so if you want to feel good about yourself, you can say, well, in 2020 we underpolled. The polling people didn't establish the survey quite right, and they had too many, Democrats in the composition of those that were polled. If you have too many of one party, the other party, in your statistical sampling of the people that you called, then the polling would be, it would lean more one way or the other, particularly when, it's so close, it's like everyone's dancing on the head of a pin, or a type wire. You're walking across a type wire. It's so close. You lean one way or the other and you fall off the type wire. Or you fall into the victory, which way do you fall? Into the victory pile of Trump, or do you fall in the victory pile of Harris as you're walking this tightrope of even polling? Well, we'll see what happens. So you got two things that are going to influence the polling in the next 2 weeks. And the first thing is that the honeymoon period for Harris, Walt's ticket, is going to wear off, and you're going to get back to basics here, and you don't have all the 4 or 5 nights in a row of all this happy-go-lucky Democrat stuff, which is associated with the Democratic National Convention, which that's the way it should be. No complaint. It's just the way it is. Well, the influence of all that, wears off, and okay, party time is over. We got to get back to the reality of what I stand for, with this polling stuff. So the honeymoon, as they say, I'm not a pollster, I just listen to it. So they say the honeymoon period is in the calm down period right now, where you're going to get back to basics, and that's why she had this interview with the CNN folks. And you talk about, I watched it, and you talk about throwing out softball questions, like what's your favorite color? I mean that wasn't a real question, but really? Come on. All right, so this is the Wisconsin presidential preference, the Real Clear Politics, calculations from July 22nd to August 19th. So that's about a month's worth of polling. You add them up and divide by whatever. And each of these polls would be, 1,000 people surveyed, 3,000 people surveyed, 1,100 people surveyed. So, different polling organizations which publish their results, Real Clear Politics, traps that information. And Wisconsin, Harris is up by 1. Georgia, presidential preference. It looks like for July 22nd to August 14th, Trump is up by 1 in Georgia. And here you can see the forecast maps. With, you can see solid blue, likely blue, You have three shades of blue on there. You got 3 shades of red. Dark red, medium red, and pink. So Georgia is leaning GOP. Florida is likely GOP, as is Texas. Well, Texas is, like leaning. Oklahoma, Louisiana, Arkansas, those are solid GOP. But the yellow ones, they are toss-up states. New Mexico, Arizona, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. So the pink and the yellow. So you got North Carolina, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Nevada, and Arizona. Those let's see. Yep. Those 4 states are the toss-ups. Now you could have surprises in Georgia or North Carolina, because that's leaning Republican. That doesn't mean it's going to be Republican. But I would say, everything that's pink or red is going to be conservative, and everything that's either blue, light blue, whatever, they're going to go Democrat. But Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Arizona, and Nevada are toss-up. So those states are going to they're the ones that are going to determine who's going to be president. Michigan, she's up by 2. Gigafactory in Nevada, which is built and engineered to build engines, motors. They're building motors like crazy in there. Remember, then they supply the motors to Gigafactory Texas and Gigafactory in California, in Fremont, California. Tesla broke ground on Giga, Nevada, their expansion area. See that over in the back corner? They're getting ready to pour their foundation. It's a big, see it says SEMI. So they're not only making the motors, but they're going to build, they're detailing the factory right now under roof with robotics and so forth to build the tractor trailer, the front part, the part that, locks on to the trailer. So the semi factory is, going vertical. The best crane is no crane. So that's what's going on with that. And you can see semi is on the roof, SEMI. So when you fly over it, you can see where the semi factory is. Yep, there we go. That's what the tractor trailer looks like, with the steering wheel and the console in the middle, not on the side, because you really don't have a passenger in there. And if you want a passenger, they got a bunk, they got, bench seat behind the driver. So the driver's got several screens in front of him. The driver's seat's in the middle, and he has electronics, because there's a camera on the side of that door, because it's got a big mirror on each side. And I think they're hoping that they can prove to the various jurisdictions that we don't need mirrors, because we have very good cameras. Mirrors, they can get clipped off. So they're trying to have, Florida, California, Texas, departments of highway transportation to let them not have mirrors because they've got very good cameras. They don't need mirrors. And they have redundancy in their computers so that if part of the computer fails, the other computer will take over because they've got complete redundancy in their computing power. And you see the chip, you got two separate chips, two separate this, two separate that. I mean, they run in conjunction with each other, but if one fails, they got the other one. You got to have redundancy, when you have this automated driving. Otherwise, the occupants are at risk of crashing and going boom. The other big piece of news is Harris had this debate last night, which was, it was a Q&A with a very friendly CNN broadcaster. And it was, even then, Kamala would not answer the questions. She wasn't sit back and I'm not going to answer. No, she'd answer the question, but she wouldn't answer the question asked. She'd just start talking about something else. Yeah, that's amazing. Here's two trucks that ended up in Texas. Imagine they were assembled in California and then by truck. You see that they're sitting on a platform. They're tied down and all that kind of stuff. These cranes lifted these. See, here's the. No, that's not it. So here's one. See, it's on the truck. And it's just gone through the gate. And then a big crane, dropped cables on either sides of that sucker. Let's see. You can see the wire right here in the middle screen. You see that wire's hanging down. Well, these guys will separate those wires and make it such that they can pull that. So here, see, they lifted one up, and then the truck drove off, and then they but they lowered, the vehicle down to the ground. And they're going to do the same thing again. They're going to attach that cable to all four corners of this wooden base that it's sitting on, and then lift it up off this flatbed truck, and then the truck will drive away as the item is suspended above, the truck. And then when it's clearance, then it just lowers the truck onto the ground. And then it's capable of self-propelling itself once they remove those. You see the wheels are locked not only with the brakes, but those two wooden blocks behind and in front of all four wheels. So those get removed. And then the truck can just drive off, that wooden ramp thing without any, it's not that big of a ramp. So instead of needing a crane, and then you pull the wood out from under it, they don't need that. They just pull those blocks out, and it can drive off that wooden platform. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And then this news came up about the Apple event, where they're going to talk about new phones for sure, the iPhone 16 X and 16 Pro Max, which we will get. So I have a 15 Pro Max here, marvelous phone, and that'll be cleaned up, and when the new one comes, all the applications and software that's in here will be uploaded to the cloud, which it does, backs up every night. And I'll get the most. I'm right now going through and trashing apps that I don't use or that I haven't used and just get rid of them. And I still have 560 apps on there. I'm trying to do the same thing with the iPad. Not that I'm going to be upgrading my iPad. But see, I can go here. You can't see this. Go on this side. So I'll just lift that up a little bit. And then I'll go to over here. Oops, this right there. There we go. So I just opened up settings. I'm going to go to general, and then I'm going to go to about. On the about, it tells me that I'm on iOS 18 as a beta tester. I think they've had, beta test 22A 5350A. So that's what the present software version we're on. There's model number, serial number, all that stuff. Songs, videos, 91,900 photos on this phone. 557 apps. See, that's way down because that used to be 700 apps. Or that's why it didn't get to 700. That gives me a headache just thinking about that. 557. So I want to get rid of at least, 60 more apps. I want to get that, under 500 apps. I remember when it was at 400. So maybe if I could, could I get rid of 157 apps before I, and then the next backup would go up in the cloud. And then when the new phone comes, several weeks from now, it'll be onloading, all, 400 apps and everything else about my phone and my pictures and everything. But I want to get the number of apps down. See, my total capacity is 1 gigabyte, and I have available 1 tetrabyte, which is 1,024 gigabytes, and I'm using 548 gigabytes of, 1024 gigabytes. So I'm about 50-50 on how much memory I've used as opposed to how much memory is available. I think I'm about 50-50. So that's what's going on with my iPhone. In the meantime, it's keeping track of how much time I've been talking here on the air. So we have Kamala with her first press thing, with a friendly network and a friendly news person. And it didn't do anything for me. She's still full of all this happy horse crap, using other words. What are you really going to do for us? You've been vice president for 4 years, 3.5 years, and now all of a sudden you've got a rebirth. You're somebody else. You had all these policies that, no fracking and no this and no that, and we don't need walls. What are walls? You do away with walls. Well, you got a front door, don't you? You don't close your door and leave it unlocked, do you? No, you not only have a door, which is a barrier between you and all your family members and the outdoors for any crazy that wants to get at you. So depending on your rank and position in society, it depends on how many people are going to be knocking on your door with weapons. That's how I look at it. So if you're a good loyal dog and haven't been really the target of a lot of stuff, then you don't need a security detail. But if you are someone, that's in national politics, and you have incredible media attention, which means then you have a lot of attention from people that are good for you and bad for you. So you want to not take the choices that represent Chinese companies, because now, in light of those people and the supplies they use to bury with them, are nice and solid and good people in good slots, including the batteries that work on their devices, which I don't have a sample of those batteries, but they're 3 or 4 ampere hour batteries, and they run all the DeWalt batteries, and they power DeWalt equipment. And I have a DeWalt compressor down here. Let's see if it's got a battery on it, because if it does, we need to put it in the charger, make sure it's, because I need to go charge up the tires in our car. So let's just take a peek here. It's just in a nice little bag, tote bag. There it is, the compressor, and it's got a battery that's attached. Oh, what the hell is that? Shouldn't be in there. So it's probably just fell in there. So I would detach this battery. It's a 4 ampere hour battery, and just put that in the charger. I'll leave this bag open. This is the compressor. See, everything is kind of like that yellow color. And this compressor is, you just go around and fill up each tire. It takes about 5 minutes a tire. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes, you're done putting air in this device. So we'll just put that over here in the side pocket, so to speak, and charge up that battery, and then seal up that bag, and then sometime this weekend I'll fill up the tires. And this is the power. It's nice. This is a little clicker that this thing goes down and that releases the battery. And the battery was made in 2020. Looks like. The DeWalt stuff is very heavy. I mean, the batteries are good for 10 years, These are lithium batteries. So this is a good 10-year battery. It's well taken care of, It's not like it's been thrown around a work site, a job site. So that'll go, that'll be the next thing to do, is charge up this battery. We'll just put it right there. Out of the way. Anything else I need to tell you today? Muffins. Let's see, what's this? Oh, the most reliable used cars by brand. This is published by Consumer Reports. I just thought you might be interested. Here you can see the whole list, so you can expand it to your liking. Producers, make that full screen. Remember, this is a Simulcast on 3 networks, and it's produced by the 3 of us, me, myself, and I. So when I say producer, I'm focusing myself on that particular assignment. So we're now full screen on the most reliable used cars by brand. And these are cars that are 5 to 10 years old, that have gone through the used car scenario, and then they've listed. See, here's the overall scoring, and I haven't gone through, they went through 150,000 vehicles from 2019 to 2014. So that makes them at least 5 years old in every direction. So let's look. You can see there's the top 14 are in yellow, and then it goes the top of that. 15 is 16, 17 is Volvo, Audi, and Hyundai. Chevy is 18. So here, Lexus. Lexus, Toyota. Of course, Lexus is the high-end branding for Toyota, right? Just as Acura, which is number 4 on the list, is the high-end version of a Honda. You know, Acura is a Honda. We've driven Acuras, a bunch of them. You know, we had them on lease for 3-year leases. And Acura is a great car. And then we drove a Toyota, I think, and then we've driven Mercedes and BMW. They're also yellow cars on the yellow list. BMW is number 7, Mercedes is number 10. But Lexus and Toyota are number 1 and 2 with 75. What's ringing there? Oh, maybe it's just like that. You know, these polling organizations, they're picking up the data line numbers on my device. So, you know, this iPad was ringing like it's a phone. You can call the number and it'll act like a telephone. But I've never given out the number for a person to call me. But these polling organizations pick up the data line because it's you know, an active number. All right, Lexus and Toyota. See, it's 75, a score of 75 and 72. And then there's quite a drop. I mean, it goes 12, 13 points down before you get to Mazda, Acura, or Honda. You know, so Lexus, Toyota is way up on the list. You see Volkswagen, Lincoln, Mini, the Cadillac, Benz. Mercedes-Benz has a score of 43. Subaru has a score of 46, along with BMW. And then you go down into this next tier, which is Volvo, Audi, Hyundai, Chevrolet, which has, and Kia, which has a score of 38, 39, and 40. And then Ford, GMC, and Ram have a score of 35 and 36. Jeep is 32. See, Tesla is 30. Now, Tesla, that's really not a fair evaluation, and the reason why is because there are almost no Teslas out there that are 5 or 10 years old, because they didn't start manufacturing them, you know, in any numbers, you know, but for 5 years ago. So you really don't have any 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old Toyotas out there to evaluate. So the score is real low because there just aren't any cars. So, you know, 5 years from now, they'll be on the top. I can pretty much assure you of that. I've, you know, they have service departments, and they have, you know, if you've got a problem, their vehicle will come find you and fix you up. You know, if you're off on the side of the road somewhere, you give them a call and they'll come get you, you know. And so they got these mobile vans all over the place, and particularly in the United States, and they'll come get you if you got a problem. If you get a flat tire, they'll come fix it on the spot. They'll replace the tire. I don't know if they'll fix it. They'll replace it for sure. And when you ask for service, you do it right on the app on the phone. Let's just show you that for show and tell. Here's the Tesla app. So you can see right here, and you call for service. You can do it. You go right down here. See service with the little wrench right there in the middle of the screen. I hit that caret right there. Request service. You can ask a question and it'll answer it for you. You know, It's almost like a text messaging thing. It goes right into the service department. It'll either answer it, in Delray, Fort Lauderdale, or Miami. I remember one time I was either talking with or texting with, and I said, so where are you based? He said, oh, I'm in Miami. So you can request service. So I'll push that button, and it says, what's your topic? You got exterior problems, interior problems, collision and glass problems, noise and vibration, tires and wheels. Let's hit tires and wheels. That's probably the most one. Software, autopilot, accessories. Let's do tires and wheels. I'm not actually going to file. See, tires, wheels, brakes, suspension, or other. Here's emergency roadside help. Is that button? And it'll come do something for you. So I'm going to click tires. Let's see what happens next. What do we got? Low tire pressure. Do we have a tire rotation issue? Replace a tire. Tire set swap, whatever that means. Let's hit replace tire. Maybe low is, maybe that's what a flat tire is. See, and then it tells you the pressures all around in my car here. Go back. That's why I got my compressor out here, because I know that. See, my tire pressure is 4 hours ago when Marilyn went to work. 36, 35, 34. I need to get them up to 40. Recommended tire pressure is 40. Tire rotation, what's that? So, replace tire. Why? Because there's a whole, is it front tire, rear tire? So if you press front, see what happens. Let's just see next. No, it doesn't. I don't want to actually ask for service. So let's get out of here. Anyway, so you get the joke. You ask for whatever service is, you hit that button. Well, I'm telling you, we had our Tesla for 3 years. We got it brand new, 2021. Drove it for 3 years. You know how much service we had? 0. None. After about 10,000, 12,000 miles, I made a service appointment, went in Delray Service Center. I said, look at the car. I mean, you're supposed to bring it in when some lights light up, but I haven't had any warning lights or anything. And I've driven it 12,000 miles, so is there anything that can you just check it out? Put me at ease. And they checked it out, and they came back to me and said, oh, by the way, your battery was a little low on, the recycling voltage and all that. So we replaced it, just so you wouldn't maybe have to come in here in a year and a half or two. I said, well, I don't have any trouble. He said, but we've already replaced it. That's done. So that was, but I actually didn't call for any low voltage anything. I haven't had a service light come on. And when we got the car, I said, so what's the service interval? He said, there isn't one. I said, what do you mean by that? He said, there isn't one. I mean, there's really nothing to do with this car. It just keeps rolling. Sorry. Yeah, I said, okay. And it was my first Tesla, so I believed him almost. And guess what? We drove it for 3 years. You know how much service we had? None. He replaced the battery just for the hell of it. Because I was there, because I was nervous that none of the lights ever came on. So I didn't know whether the lights were, it wasn't a light. I'm using the vernacular as if I had a Toyota or a Honda or a Chevy or a BMW or a Lexus. We've driven all those cars over the last 40 years. But you know what my favorite cars were? It was a Lexus. RX 450H, I believe was the model number of that. RX 450 with a little H, which stood for hybrid. So we had a RX 450 with a hybrid motor, hybrid battery, you know. Get 500 miles for a fill up using, you know, regular gasoline, not high test, regular gasoline. And that's what, you know, that's what the doctor ordered. That was my favorite car. And since then, I've driven the Mercedes, BMW, and Toyota products, not Lexus. I had one Lexus, the RX 450H, and then drove 3 other kinds of cars for 3 years on leases, always leased. And the Honda, the Lexus now is my favorite vehicle. No service, it rides, you know, I mean, the ride is really smooth like a luxury car should ride. Now I set up, you know, these menus of things. When you start driving your car for the first time, you can decide if you want real tight steering like you're a race car driver, and the same thing, brakes. Do you want very active brakes, or do you want chill brakes, which means a little softer on the pedal, and acceleration. Do you want super strong acceleration, or do you want to set in the middle, or do you want to set it for chill? I have everything set to chill, meaning, and it drives beautifully. I mean, it's actually, you know, a pretty strong car, even though I have everything set to chill. So when you accelerate, it doesn't jam your head back in the headrest. It gives you just a little bit of softness when you accelerate. But I'll tell you what, you keep when you put your foot down on that pedal, the accelerator pedal, you take off. You know, unbelievable takeoff, and I have it set to chill. I don't know what it'd be like if you didn't have it set to chill. I don't want to experiment. Chill's working fine, so that's what it's set for. So no service requirement, nothing ever breaks. At least, you know, I've had this car, you know, for another year, so we're in our first year of the next Tesla. Same thing, everything just works. You know, and I think that's exactly what he intended. You know, you don't have an engine up front with 8,000 parts, you know. Like Eon says, the best part is no part. So if you don't have any parts, it makes it easy. Anyway, so you can see how you call for service. Let me get myself introduced back in the imagery. There we go. And my soundboard. There's my warm tea. It's not hot tea anymore. It's warm tea. Matter of fact, it's not even warm anymore. It's it's 12:30. Gosh, it's 12:30. Yep, there it is. My computer just said it's 12:30. Alexa, what time is it?
Good afternoon, J.L. Wilson. It's 12:30 p.m.
There you go. See, my computer says it's 12:30, and there it is. 12:30. Well, you can't see it on that one, but there's a clock right there. 12:30 and 26 seconds. Yeah, this clock is blocked by. Oops. Yeah, this microphone is right smack in the way of that clock. It's okay. That's why we have this clock over here. I had this big windshield protection on this microphone. So it makes it nice because I can keep my face nice close to the microphone, get a nice tonal quality out of this Electro Voice. This is the mic that Rush Limbaugh used in his, studio for his broadcast, where he had 25 million listeners at 2 in the afternoon to whatever, couple of 3-hour program. And you have 23 million people. It was one of the highest rated, radio programs, period. He was number one by a large. I have, he had 25 million. I'm lucky if I get 25. It's amazing. But you never know. Maybe my talk show will take off. And right now it's gliding. I have 1,000 friends on Facebook. I've got several hundred friends on YouTube, and a few more than that on Twitter. So there are a lot of people that listen in, anonymously. People could text me anytime. Why don't some of you text me just so I know there's someone out there? There's always someone listening to me. They come and go. I talk. This is like 10. So I've been on this broadcast for 1 hour and 51 minutes. You see the clock right here. 1 hour and 51. There we go. 1 hour and 51. Moving the microphone thing around here so you can see 1 hour 51 minutes and 27, 28, 29 seconds. 1 hour and 32 minutes. Yeah. 1 hour 51 minutes and 32 seconds. Yeah. 1 hour and 51 minutes. There we go. This stopwatch will keep going forever. So when I go off the air, I hit stop to correspond with the amount of airtime. But I've cleaned up all my technical issues, so I was losing YouTube, and every once in a while I lose Twitter. But see, now I've had the longest broadcast in my short history of podcasting, what do you want to call this, is 3 hours and 35 minutes. Can you imagine? That's a lot of, you keep feeding me nickels and I'll keep talking. I don't get fed any nickels and I keep talking anyway. I took out my, I have just so you know that I'm not, I've got bullets. What do you think? I happen to have a zipper bag. Let's go full screen on this so you can see. I have a weapon right here for your examination. Oh my God, look at that. It's all strapped, it's all in the Velcro. This is a caliber that's been around a long time, but it hasn't been very popular. And it's, oh yeah, there we go. Let me undo this. There you go. That's a loaded magazine. Let's turn the focus a little bit this way so you can see that is a loaded magazine. And it's loaded with what they call 5.7 times 28. You can see that right there. 5.7 by 28. That's a bullet that looks, I'll show you this. It's a 5.7 caliber. It almost looks like a 22 round, but it's bigger. This looks like, this is the miniature version of the shell that was fired at Trump, because that's a NATO round, and it's bigger, it's longer and fatter. I don't have a weapon that's calibered in the NATO round, and you can look up what a NATO round is just by doing a Google search on NATO round. or whatever your search engine is. Anyway, this little box holds 50 of these suckers. So this is a box of 50, but there's not 50 in here. You know why? Because this clip has like 15 or so shots in there. You can see they're all stacked up in this. I put it in the gun, but there's nothing in the chamber. And this little thing is supposed to go in the chamber. Let's see if I can do that. This is an empty clip. Let's put that in there. I can pull this back. There it goes, the lock's open. And then I'm going to put this little sucker in there and then release. There we go. So that's like locked in there. So that makes it very clear that there's no ammunition in the gun. I have a silencer for this. Yeah, I have another clip. So if I ever, anyone starts knocking down the door, I can protect my family. That's, ever hear of the Second Amendment? Yes, sirree, Bob. You're allowed to protect yourself. So that Velcro goes there, and this goes there. Yep. Easy, quick release. This is a little ratchet thing that helps you load the cartridge, the magazine, the right nomenclature here. That's it. So that's all zipped up. The silencer. Let's see. Let's see if I can show you that. It should be right in this box right here. It's either on this box or it's in that. It's attached to my rifle. Let's see if it's in here. Ah, yes. Let me show you that. I'm showing you all my toys here. There's a, the vernacular is silencer. And you can see, let's see if I can angle that so you can see through it. You see right there? So there's a hole right in there, see? And inside of here are a bunch of brass baffles. So that as the bullet is traveling here, the sound and the gases that follow the bullet essentially get baffled and trapped a little bit behind the bullet. And the bullet comes out of here. So you don't see a blast, the blast from the, from the bullet exiting the handgun. I don't think I can. Can I put the suppressor in here at the same time? Be a pretty sad package. But you just unscrew this little screw on the front. It's a 1/2 inch by 40 thread, which is the same threading as the suppressor, and that just screws on the end of the handgun. Let me unvelcro this so you can just get an idea of what I mean, this is like in the movies. This is all properly licensed. I have a, this is registered with the government, properly registered suppressor in my name. And that's it. That's what a handgun. That's a handgun with a suppressor. This happens to be a Smith & Wesson 5.7 caliber, which is smaller. This is actually a suppressor designed for 9mm, but a 5.7 will go through there just fine. It'll suppress. It won't quite have the same sound suppression level, but the factory, I had the people at the gun store, that's in Boca Raton, go. I mean, it took a year for me to get approved, by the, the federal agency that controls suppressors, and you pay $200, I think $205 for a stamp, and on your application they glue on a stamp, literally, digitally actually, and you pay a fee, a stamp tax for the suppressor. Imagine if I got another suppressor for another caliber, which I'm not going to do. But if I did, it would probably be a much shorter period of time, since I've already gone through, the extensive background checks they do for suppressors. It is extensive. I will certify that. Let's see, this goes this way. Let's see if I can just fit that in there and make it a little more compact. Yeah, let's put that in there and let that be it. Bring this back through underneath my microphone and zip that baby up. Suppressor is there, which is going to go back in the box. But next time we go to the range, I think this box. Let's see if that box fit in there. I guess it doesn't. 5.7 by 28 millimeter. Let's see. 5.7 caliber. That's 5.7 millimeters. If you want to know, it's 5.7 what? It's 28 millimeters long. The caliber is 5.7. Yeah. So that little guy fits right there. In case any trouble comes. The suppressor is more of a fun toy. It'll go neatly in the box. Silencer Co. The Silencer Company. I think in Arizona or something. It says, please hold for James Wilson. Yeah. Has my phone number on it. The suppressor name is Octi something 9, version 2, and there's a serial number after it. And that information went on the application because you get certified per suppressor. So this is the Octane 9 2.0. Class 3. James Lawrence Wilson, Class 3. Anyway, I got approved. Goes through the firearms background checking that everyone else has to go through. I have a valid concealed weapons permit, which is basically a nationwide thing. So, if I ever drove off and drove, so if I were to go on a trip with Marilyn in the car and have some kind of an overnight excursion where we were going to Georgia or someplace, I would have this little baby in the car with me. Not with the suppressor. If I whipped out that, but officer, that'd be that'd be a mess. I'd end up getting all approved, but I'd probably have to spend, overnight in jail while they checked it all out. Because how many people ride around with a suppressor? But if you had it in the box, as opposed to installed on the weapon, you could just say you're just going over to Aunt Louise, and we're just going to put it in her closet. Legally, you're not allowed to walk around with a suppressor on like you see in the movies. No. you know, you can do it. It's kind of like speeding. You know, the only time you're speeding is when you get caught speeding. Otherwise, you're just going fast. I go the speed limit. Everything I have here is all properly licensed and so forth. Now, when I drop dead, Daniel says he wants my gun stuff. So, it's like gun dust on my iPad here. I don't want gun dust on my iPad. Got all my did a lot of show and tell here today. See, that's fun though. If you've never seen, you know, a real person with a real suppressor, now you can't say you've never seen that, because now you have. It's all properly licensed and everything, so I'm on air, and I'm safe, because you know, it's all properly licensed with the appropriate authorities. They go through 11 different federal authorities to get you approved for a concealed weapons license or devices like suppressors. Only the highest level people, I mean high level, like I'm bragging, I'm just saying, the people that have been investigated, you know, as a CEO and a board member of a federally insured bank. I was the CEO of Southern Security Bank Corporation, which owned a bank. And I was CEO of the, yes, I was CEO and vice chairman of the bank. I was CEO and vice chairman of the bank. Phil Motter was the president of the bank. Chief executive officer is kind of like sits next to the president. I think it's actually a slightly higher level, because the CEO and the board of directors would actually seat the president. I mean, pick him and put him in the spot. In this case, Phil Motter was president, and he picked me. So it's kind of like a reverse. He was quite a partner in that operation. He was president. He put the bank holding company together, even though it didn't own a bank. And he raised some money with the Butler family. And then he put out a feeler, and they found Jimmy. And then I met with Phil, and he says, "Perfect. I want you to join me in my bank holding company, and which you have to get approved for. You know, so all kinds of federal applications you got to go through with the state of Florida and the Federal Reserve. Actually, the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta, Federal Reserve District 6, I believe, which is Atlanta. When you look at your currency and you see a 6 on it, that's Federal Reserve Bank number 6, which is Atlanta all the way over Florida and Alabama and all that, South Carolina. That's Federal Reserve 6. So all those people knew me. There are only so many banks, right? And you go through all kinds of, I mean, they grab you by the ankles, lift you up upside down, shake you until all your coins fall out of your pockets. They check you out from top to bottom. Yeah. And they go through your history and make sure you're not this or that. And then you eventually get approved after about 4 or 5 months. Meantime, you can be in the bank holding company, but you can't serve as a, whatever the heck Phil hired me in as. And after about a year, you know, so he was raising money and I'm helping him raise money. And I said, "Phil, it's really difficult to raise money when you don't have a target bank. What are we waiting for? Let me go find a bank. With your permission, I'll go buy a bank. How about that?" "Well, how are you going to do that?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to, you know, I can ask you the same question. How are you going to raise $6 million? You don't have to tell me. Just go do it. Same thing here. I'm going to go buy a bank, and I don't want to, I'll give you some hints on what I'm going to do. I mean, it's not a secret. It's just I don't want to waste 3 weeks explaining everything. Let me just. I'm going to put a bank under a definitive agreement. I'm an experienced bank acquisition person because I was on the bank acquisition team at Royal Trust Bank, and that that august institution bought 34 banks in the state of Florida and merged them all together into Royal Trust Bank, USA. It was one of the very first, and I think maybe only at the time, bank holding company that was owned by a Canadian bank. The bank holding company that I work for was owned by Royal Trustco in Canada. Anyway, that's a whole bunch of procedures and stuff. It was the only bank holding company owned by a foreign entity. And that was Canada. It was just, So the first bank owned by Royal Trust, USA, was in Miami, Royal Trust Bank of Miami. I actually worked for the Royal Trust Bank of Miami. And then Jerry Gilliam and Bob Curtis asked me to be on the acquisition team. So they dispatched us to us meeting about 5 other people, a total team of 6. One of the members was an accountant. He didn't actually go with us when we went out. He went out in advance. So if we found a bank that wanted to be bought, or if we found a bank that we wanted to buy, either way, we would get in touch with the CEO of that bank and say, hey, how would you like to be, how would you like publicly traded stock and exchange your privately held stock? Since you guys are all in your 70s and 80s, you've been running this bank beautifully for 30 years. And it's time to, turn the chapter. You can, give your sons and daughters and grandchildren publicly traded stock as part of your estate, rather than them owning a minority interest in, a legacy bank, but they don't know anything about the banking business. They'd rather have the shares, and then if they don't want the shares, they can sell the shares in the open market, and it's easy to do. And that was basically 80% of our pitch, which got us in the front door, because the CEO would say, yeah, I'm 78, getting a little tired of doing this. I don't want to do it anymore. I'd rather go fishing. So if we can make a deal that makes economic sense, have at it. And then we'd say, okay, but we need to examine everything. So you need to print out all, so we give them a laundry list of everything we wanted to look at, which was basically everything. So we'd have a stack of the papers, that thick. So we'd have like 3 pounds of materials. And the accountant would go through, the P&L and the assets and liabilities. But our job, meaning the 4 of the 6 of us, would actually dispatched back to the target bank, and we'd have keys left under the mat, so to speak, so that when after they lock up and the employees leave, we would, meet the CEO, shake hands kind of thing, and he'd unlock the bank and turn off the alarm system. He'd give us the combos to the alarm system. So in case it went off, inadvertently, we'd have the ability to reset the alarm, so we don't end up with a bunch of police arresting us. And we'd stay in there from 9 p.m. to, we'd be all time shifted. So that our day, began at 6 p.m. and our day ended at, the next day. So we'd be in the bank from 9 p.m. to 4 a.m. So we'd have dinner at 5, 6 a.m. We'd have breakfast at 6 p.m. We'd be on the wrong end of the clock, so to speak. So that's what we did for weeks on end. We would travel around to different cities. We'd be out of the, because I was, running the commercial loan department, I think, at the time. So I'd be out of the office, and my executive assistant would run the show while I'm gone, and we'd talk, when we needed to talk, cell phone to cell phone. And Irene Mitchell, who is who I'm talking about, she'd call me with anything she needed to call me about, and I'd be out of town doing the bank acquisition thing with 4 other people. And then there was, I think, one out of Treasury Management, and another, that was Jill Taggart, and then another fellow, Johnson, maybe, Jerry Johnson, red-headed fellow. Yeah. He would actually he'd be the CPA accountant kind of person in our 6-member team. But the 4 of us, we were the travel team. So our job was to verify, certify, and otherwise examine the loan portfolio. So that was the big job, was to go through the portfolio, because that's where you eat the losses. If loans start going, loans are going bad, or the bank is covering up loans that are bad, and they don't want to expose the bad loans to themselves. All kinds of things that go on in loan portfolios. But so we would examine the portfolio. So, yeah, I remember when we were looking at a bank in Zephyr Hills, I looked at. So we first started, going through the portfolios. 2 of us were going through. One was going through the commercial loans, and Jimmy was going through the real estate loans. So I did this chicken loan. It was a $300,000. So we're all sitting around a conference table. We're all looking at our portfolios, going through, taking notes, and all this stuff. And we write up what we would consider the cited assets, meaning classified other than, adversely classified assets. And I came up with a format where people would fill out these forms, handwritten forms, to produce the cited asset, if they had any assets that were substandard, doubtful, or loss. Those were the 3, categories of loans that are El Stinko. Maybe the portfolio was fine. We didn't have any cited assets. But that our job was to prove out the asset side of the portfolio. One of the other persons was to prove out the liability side of the portfolio, which is all your CDs, your DDA accounts, your time deposits, savings accounts, certificates of deposits. So there was another person that looked at all those. Now that was an easier job. It was more proving out the amount of such things rather than the quality of such things. Although they looked at both. And they would prove out that side of the balance sheet. And our job was, which I was, the commercial loan and real estate guy, and we had another commercial loan real estate guy. So the two of us, divide it up. So we would say, okay, here's X numbers of millions of dollars in the portfolio, $100 million, $200 million portfolio. And they got, they have 2,000 loans. Well, not going to look through 2,000 loans. That would take, too many months. So we'd say, okay, let's look at all the unsecured loans, over 20,000. And, we're just picking thresholds. So let's say we look at all the unsecured loans over 10,000. So how many of those there are? So we have these lists, and we could sort them, So we had a list, and say, all right, how many loans are there that are unsecured over 10,000? How many of those there are? All right, there's 75 of those. All right, let's say all the unsecured loans over 20,000. How many of those there are? Well, there's 47. Okay, we'll do that. So print out a list of all the loans over unsecured over 20,000. Print that list out. So we would ask this of the CEO of the bank, and and we tell him, okay, print that list. So he'd take notes. I said, okay, all right, let's look at the real estate portfolio. How many of those you got? Well, we got 527 real estate loans. From $100 to, to like 2 million. That's the biggest one. All right. So, how many real estate loans are there over $50,000? And take out the residential. These are all commercial real estate deals, non-residential, over 50,000. How many of those are there? Say, okay, 57. It's okay. Print out a list of all those in order of biggest to smallest. So you have and commercial loans. Just true commercial loans to businesses. How many loans do you have over 20,000? You'd say, okay, I got 55 of those. I said, okay, print out a list of all those commercial loans over 20,000. From high to low. So the front page is the biggest ones. They're in order of high to low. So those are the 4 lists we want. Please print those out. Put them fold them in half, put them in an envelope. Put our name on it. Seal up the envelope. And when we come in the first day, you or whoever you direct will essentially give us the keys to the front door. You let us in, give us the envelope, give us a passcode so we can get in and out of here in case we want to have a little dinner or something or other. This is 9 o'clock at night, by the way. No employees around, just the CEO, because we want to keep this on the, hush hush. And that's how we would examine a bank. The first day we get an envelope because we declared all the lists that we wanted. And then the last list was print out a list of all loans from high to low. They had 1,000 loans, so we wanted, list one after the other, different columns, the name, the what type of real estate it is, where it is, how much, what's the appraised value, you got all the columns going this way, and you got a list from here to here. So that would be 5 lists. All those lists would be, the way I kind of said, would be folded up and put in this envelope. And all this stuff would be extremely confidential and very on the low down quiet. None of the employees, except for that one employee who is a board of director member, so he'd probably be the president or the CEO. Sometimes the president is also the CEO. In our bank holding company, I was the CEO, and Phil Motto was the president. And he didn't care whether he was on top of me or he was on top, or I was on top of him. We were like arm in arm together, you know, which was very nice with Phil, because that's the way we were. One had to have each title, or one could have both titles, and I could be executive VP, and I'd be fine too. He says, no. He said, under normal circumstances, that's the way I'd have it. But you're of such high quality. We'll split. Instead of me, right now I'm president and CEO, because I'm the only one approved by the feds to, be in the bank holding company, even though we don't own a bank yet. We're just a holding company wanting to be a bank holding company. So our name was Royal Trust Bank Co. with a C instead of a K. If you're wondering how come that happens, that's because when the company is originally formed, and you actually don't have a bank yet, you can't have bank in your name unless you're federally approved to have a bank in your name. So that's why it's BANCO. Oh gosh. So after we were running the bank operation, anyway, so that's Royal Trust Bank. So then we went to, years later, Phil Motter hired me into, Sun Security Banco with a C, because we didn't own a bank yet, and we weren't approved by the Federal Reserve to own a bank. So the first thing you have to do is get a bank under a definitive agreement, which is a fancy word for saying get yourself a contract to buy a bank. And then that has to go through our board of directors. It has to go through the board of directors of the selling bank, because we're going to be the buyer and they're going to be the sellee, so to speak. So they're selling, we're buying, and we get that under definitive agreement. No money has changed hands, just a handshake, and both boards of directors approves this definitive agreement. Of course, I wrote one out, with the help of, 3 attorneys, and of course I kept a copy of it and had it in my trusty laptop, and you change the name and dates and values, based on what your target bank was. So it was very easy for me to put a definitive agreement together for a target bank once I found one. Well, I found one in Hollywood, Florida. So I went through there's a source, a way to look at all the banks, from little to large. So we were on the little side. And I found this nifty little $50 million bank in Hollywood on Sheridan Street. And I met with the chairman of the board of the bank. I met with the president of the bank also. First, the president of the bank. I mean, I just knocked on the door, went in there, made an appointment with the president of the bank, who was hired by the board to essentially babysit this bank until it was successfully acquired, because they didn't really want to run it anymore. I mean, they ran it for 7 years. They really never made a profit. They were running out of capital. It was, a bank it was on the bank poop list, of closely managed banks. I don't know if they were under a definitive agreement with the feds, but they were going to be, soon. I think their last audit by the state of Florida was considered a classified bank, meaning that it was not okay. There's some stage of something's got to happen or this bank is going to fail. So the state of Florida basically told the directors of Southern Security Bank, find an acquirer or we will find you an acquirer, So it'll be state assisted, or you find your own acquirer. Sell it for whatever you can get. But you need to come up with a partner who's going to pump in a lot of capital in this bank, or else you're going Pepsic in vernacular. So that's just so happened that I might have called the Jerry Dolan, who is a person that would go in and try to assist on these murders. So anyway, Jerry Dolan and I became really good buddies, and she was working for Deloitte and Touche. She was the regional manager of bank holding company activities within the accounting firm. So she worked for Deloitte and Touche, an accounting firm, and I was an employee of a bank holding company that doesn't have a bank yet. So when I started getting interested in Southern Security Bank, then I started getting interested in Jerry Dolan, because I wanted her to present me to the state of Florida and to the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta. And so I had a definitive agreement. I said, Phil, it's going to be a lot easier for you to raise money, because I'm going to take a nice picture of the bank and I'm going to give you a picture of it so you can have it in your portfolio. I'll give you 10 of them, and we're going to attach them, or whatever you want, to some summary information I'm going to prepare for you of the bank, so that you can present it confidentially to potential investors in the bank. And then you can say, we're going to buy this bank, instead of, we're going to buy a bank. And they're going to say, well, where? We're going to say, well, I don't know yet. We don't have it yet. So, I mean, it kind of takes away the sting of buying a bank, This wealthy guy says, yeah, I want to be, yeah, why not? I want to invest in you, Phil Motter. I've known you for 25 years. You run banks in Boca Raton successfully for decades. I'd love to, invest in your new bank holding company. And then here's a picture of the bank, You'd have it right there in your little notes. And you can give them a picture of the bank, and, along with some, information that we can share confidentially with, potential investors. They don't want to see loan by loan, but they can see our reports that we write, that I'll write for you. Summarizing the important information about this. This many assets, this liabilities, this is the net worth. We're going to buy the bank for X, and then we're going to own 95% of the bank, and all their shareholders will be crammed down to 5%, so to speak, because we're going to put in so much money that their interest in the bank will be diluted, so to speak. So when all that dilution has happened, we'll own 80 to 95% of the bank, depending on how much time it takes for the regulatory approval and all that, because the bank is shrinking, So we'll see how, where the curve is by the time when we ended up buying the bank, we ended up owning like 96% of the bank, because it got down to a real small amount of capital. Day one, we put $1 million in. I had to put $1 million in to get the keys. And I had that $1 million check, because we kept on, Phil, was raising money, and I was raising money. I didn't raise a lot of money because I was kind of new into the Boca Raton market. Came from Tampa. And Phil was the local guy that everybody knew, so. But I did raise a few dollars. I remember we were at $991,000. So I went to Larry Marchbanks, who's our attorney that I had when I worked at Boca Bank. And I said, and Larry and I were friends. We played golf together and all that. He's a real good golf player, and I'm a not so good golf player. But I was a good banker person. So I met with Larry one evening, and I said, Larry, I need $1 million to buy this bank. I got 991,000. I need 9,000 more. Is there any way you can see clear to invest $9,000 in our bank holding company. It was either 9,000 or 29,000 or 19,000. It was something with a 9. You know, it's been a while. It's been, 25 years ago or something. 20 years ago, at least. I've been on the faculty at FAU for 20, so it has to be more than 20. Anyway, let's just say 30 years. We'll round down. And he's whining and crying. He says, I don't know how I'm going to do it. All this stuff. Okay. He says, I'll figure out how to do it. He says, I think I can borrow the money from this account and that account, and I'll repay myself, when this deal closes or whatever. He said, so yeah, it'll be good. I'll invest $10,000. So it was either 10, 20, or 30. I forget which. It might have been 20,000. So he reluctantly wrote a check for 20,000. I said, thank you so much, Larry. I said, it'll be deposited in our account, and then, next 10 days I'll be walking into the bank when we close the contract. So the definitive agreement basically then turns into a contract to purchase, just by changing, the top paragraph and the signature pages, because we need all the board members to sign off on it, or whatever that executive committee requires, depending on their bylaws. I mean, it's all this stuff. Well, that's why God made attorneys, but I became very good at that, because I had very good legal advice. And so that's how that happened. We ended up buying the Southern Security Bank of Hollywood. It was called the Florida First International Bank of Hollywood. Can you imagine? What a name. Florida First International Bank of Hollywood. Now the bank was like this big. International. What are you investing in, Canadian coins? And that's about all the international they did. They exchanged Canadian dollars for US dollars, and you'd send them back to the Federal Reserve. So the bank could do some currency exchanges, limited, not millions of dollars worth, but, small scale currency exchange. And you had a lot of Canadians that lived in Hollywood, Florida, East Hollywood, and condos and so forth. So there was a relatively substantial number of Canadians in southern Broward County, put it that way, which Hollywood is the southern part of Broward County. Fort Lauderdale is in the north central part of Broward County, and Deerfield Beach is in the very northern part of Broward County. And then on the other side of the highway, you got Boca Raton, So Boca Raton, Deerfield, Fort Lauderdale, and then Hollywood. That makes up the most of the municipalities in the Broward County. Anyway, so that's how we bought our first bank. It took about 6 months. But I found the bank, and then we went to regulatory approval. We did the definitive agreement. Then we went for regulatory approval, and then we got approved. And then 4 or 5 days later, we closed. And in the meantime, Phil was running around raising money. And I had that one story with Larry Marchbanks. That was like the last 19,000 we had, to get to that million, because you needed $1 million in cash. $1 million worth of dollars in a checking account. And then I would write, then we wrote a check payable to Hollywood First International Bank, First National Bank of Hollywood, or Florida First International Bank of Hollywood. So that's who we wrote the check out to. And then when we closed, I would hand that check over to the cashier of the bank, the accountant of the bank, and they would make that deposit and put it in, in the capital account of the bank. It would go right into the capital of the bank. And that's when so I was doing that, and then Hollywood, that was upstairs of the bank. And then Phil was downstairs, having cocktails with the board members, and they're all, high-fiving it. And Jimmy and all the, the people were closing the contracts and getting it signed up properly and handing over them. I had that check pinned to my shirt. I didn't want my wallet falling out. I didn't want an envelope that would be misplaced, because that million had to go in, that Thursday, because the FDIC was measuring the desks. They were getting ready to. They were gonna close the bank on Friday if we didn't close on Thursday. I mean, it got that close, and we were always in touch with each other. It wasn't like a surprise. And I actually made friends with the lady that was in charge of the FDIC. That was the field person that was looking through all the portfolios and everything. And they were getting ready to, so I said, so you have your sticker all made up? So she has this, this briefcase that she carried around. And she opened up her briefcase to me, and she said, there it is. I said, well, we're closing tomorrow. So that was like Wednesday, I was talking with her. And I said, well, just so you know, you can report to your folks that I've got the $1 million in my pocket, and we're closing tomorrow afternoon, Thursday afternoon. So I know we're real close to the wire, but you might as well tell your people you can start packing up because we're closing Thursday night. And there'll be $1 million in capital thrown in that bank. And you'll see it in Friday's business, because it posts Thursday night. You'll see it on Friday's report. And we'll show it to you on Friday, and that'll be, is there anything else you need on Friday morning so you can leave? She said, no, that's it. You show me the P&L as of Friday morning, with $1 million more in capital in there, and we'll pack up our stuff and go home, go somewhere else. That's what happened. And she packed up her crap and went home. And there were like 3 or 4 people, going through files and all this stuff, FDIC, because they not only take over the portfolio, they sell the furniture, everything's for sale, once the FDIC gets it. No, we aren't going to let that happen. Phew, we got it down to the day. It's always, if it wasn't for the last minute, nothing would get done, right? Okay, that's my bank holding company story. I'll have to make note of it. 1 o'clock p.m. for that 20 minutes. In the afternoon of Friday, I told everybody how we bought Florida First International Bank of Hollywood. I remember asking the chairman of the board, I said, so what's with the international? Did you actually ever do any? I don't see anything. He said, well, we thought we might do some international. I guess we never got around to it. Thank God they didn't. Jeez. They had enough with it. I remember going through their portfolio. They had about 40 loans that were cited, and I had to go up to the Federal Reserve and tell them exactly what I was going to do with each of the loans. And I made up a booklet, 3 of them, one for the Fed, one for the state, and one for myself. And I said, this is a bound little booklet, and if we open it up to page 2, that begins my asset list, a format that we've developed where we go through each asset. You can see the top, it goes down, top to bottom, you can see the assets. And that's what we did. It was really quite nice. We bought it, and they finally said, okay, we'll let these guys buy it. And we bought it. Whew. And we ran it for 10 or 12 years. And we finally made a profit. Jeez, took forever. We just had enough capital to keep it running and not be in a position where we'd lose money forever. We just crossed the line of making profits. And then we merged with somebody else, and then I decided I didn't want to do it anymore, which I should have stayed in, but I didn't. You know, if I could do it over again, I would have just stayed in there because it turned out the guys were not bad. You know, they were actually good. Anyway, it's now 1:30. Time for me to stop talking because it's time to, you know, I'm out of tea. This is cold now. It's supposed to be hot tea. I showed you my bullets. God, I went through all kinds of topics here, didn't I? Whew. Jeez. Harris for Trump. Look at that headline, New York Post. That's the cover of the New York Post on August 28th. She's trying to pretend she's not really liberal. I don't think that's going to work. GOP, tough border talk. It's all a con job. That's what she's telling everybody. Oh, yeah? Really? You remember Trump was building the wall until you guys stopped building the wall? And it took him 2 years to get started on the wall because the Democratic Party was suing Trump every turn he could make to try to prevent the walls. And then finally, the Supreme Court got involved and said, yeah, they can build a wall. And then he started building the wall. But he couldn't build it until, you know, all the litigation was done. So then it was done, and then he started building the wall. Well, he made sure there was about 500 miles worth of wall that was secured. And he had like 200 miles to go. And they wouldn't do it. He didn't win his second term, so he only is a one-term president. And now he's running again, so he's... now Kamala's wearing the Make America Great hat. I mean, the New York Post does not pull any punches. Flip-flopping Kamala copies the Don. That's what he used to call himself when he was in New York City building buildings. They call him the Don. Or the Donald. Hi, you know, when they refer to him as the Don. So that's what they said. Flip-flopping Kamala copies the Don. The Don should have been in quotation marks because that's what all the media would call Trump when they'd refer to him building buildings in Manhattan. The Don's got another job site. He's looking to build another 60-story building on there. He's got, you know, Hyatt signed on, you know, as one of the flags and da-da-da. And then he'd raise $125, $150 million, and he'd build a 60-story building, you know, with a floor plate of about 20,000 square foot per floor, times 60 floors, and that's so many million square feet, and you go to the, you know, the three biggest New York banks, or the three New York banks that were interested in doing such construction lending, and you go to Chicago, and you go to LA, and between New York, Chicago, and LA, and probably Houston, Texas, they would accumulate several $100 million to build the building. And then the Bank of New York or whatever, which would be the lead lender, they'd loan all the money to the Don. That's where the Don comes from. Oh gosh. What's the next New York Post thing I got here? They're all in chronological order. There's a headline. This is New York Post on the 30th, August 30th. That's today. This is the front cover of the New York Post today. Canal number 5. City tried to make want to smell a little bit better by spraying it with Christmas and citrus mist. I don't know what that's a New York thing. The Gowanus Canal, New York's most notorious cesspool, is being dredged for long delayed cleanup. The city quietly set up misters to try to mitigate the stinky smell, but Brooklyn residents tell the Post that the citrus holiday flavored mists haven't helped. It still stinks. So that's why you got this Christmas tree looking thing, royal pine. You know, I grew up in Brooklyn. That's where my parents initially lived until they pulled up stakes and went out to the North Shore of Long Island, about 45 miles due east of northeast of Manhattan, on the North Shore of Long Island, right East Hills, right inland from the Roslyn, Roslyn, Roslyn Harbor. So that's where from 10 years old to 20 years old, that's where I lived. And then when I got to be 20 years old, I went off to college. Went to Union College for 5.5 years and got a combined degree in chemistry, biochemistry, physical chemistry, biology, all kinds of biology. Pre-med student with a minor in math. It's like 140 hours worth of stuff. You only need 120 hours to graduate, but I had 140 something hours because I switched my major roles from physical chemistry, biochemistry, mathematics. I had to add a whole bunch of biology in there, so I ended up with a double major, so I would qualify for med school. Took the MCAT test, the medical college admission test, got real high scores, and got a scholarship into, I think, the University of Louisville, UK. Yeah. I didn't go. My girlfriend said, if you're going to be a doctor, then we're not going to be. Because I didn't know my father, and I don't want my kids to not know us, or you. So, you decide. Ricky Wollen or medical school? Which do you want more? Ricky Wollen. So I said, okay, I pick Ricky Wollen. Yeah, pimply-faced boy with his brains between his legs. Yeah, it was, and then a year after that, she dumped me. So I forewent a scholarship into Kentucky Medical School, and I ended up with no girlfriend anyway. Eesh. Crazy turns that we have in our life cycle. And here it turns out that Ivanka is floating around with the family on their boat where they're pulling, tubes behind the boat. So they were having a boating thing, and there's Ivanka in her bathing suit stuff, with a cover-up. And she's captaining a boat. There's her hubby. So she's riding around the boat with her several kids and two other people that are helping her captain the boat. Well, they're pulling balloons and stuff behind. Tubes, I guess you call it. And I don't know who those other two people are. That guy right there that's communicating. See, he's got his finger pointed, and if we can see his shirt, it's probably the people that are trying to sell. I am totally making this up. I have no clue. But Custom Marine of Miami, Florida, is apparently trying to sell Ivanka and her husband on this boat and all the fun they could have riding around with it. So he's working on the trim tabs right there. And this is somebody, see, they're high-fiving it with their hands. And they're looking at probably buying or they're learning how to ride the boat. It's got a Mercury engine, at least one. It's kind of tilted back. And see this bar? That's the bar that the ropes are tied to when they're pulling, big hot dog blow-ups or that you sit on, I'd rather be in the boat. And then we have I just loaded Sequela version 5.1. I just loaded it before we started broadcasting here. I've been live for almost 3 hours. 2 hours, 55 minutes, and 28 seconds, to be precise. And get this, Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and Twitter Live are all in the package here. So for the rest of time, people can go back and listen to Jimmy talking on my podcast. And maybe there'll be millions of people playing back my content because it's so, they're listening to somebody at least. I'm going through some newsy things. I happen to have that looks like the same exact computer that I got. And I've just basically installed Apple AI in there because that operating system now has AI stuff. It's all AI. I mean, the whole computer is, full of all kinds of algorithms and things. So the AI features is just the marketing things because the whole computer system, I used to be a programmer, and the Apple Intelligence, which is what they call AI, is already very, very sophisticated software. I was a Windows guy for a long time, and one of my Daniel's son, son number 4, came to me unofficially, as a 12 or 13-year-old, said, "Dad, please, no more Windows computers." Because every time I'd get a new computer, Daniel would get a new one, Brennan would get a new one, Marilyn would get a new one, and I'd get a new one. And it would be a new whatever I picked, and I tried to use my best, knowledge and intellect to get the best system that the whole family could use. Because they each had their own. And I was in a position to make sure they had, consistent software and hardware as a family. Looking at the family as like a little business. Make sure everyone's using the same computer so we all speak the same language. But that was always Apple. That was always Windows. And then Daniel said, "Please, can you get Apple equipment?" And he heard from all his buddies, and Apple used to be used in all the classrooms, from wherever we were. Apple was, that was the computer system for, elementary and high school classroom activities, in the computer labs or, science laboratories. They all used Apple equipment. So Daniel said, "Please use Apple equipment." So I said, "Okay." So I got my first Apple computer, and boy, it was painful. Switching from a Windows system to an Apple. Well, let me tell you, the Apple system is far superior. And it's a lot simpler to use. But, the file system and everything is really a lot different. It's more of a database. What? What's that mean? So I'm good. I've been, Daniel's now 32, and he came to me when he was 12. So do the math. That's 20 years ago. He begged me to switch to Apple, and 20 years ago I switched to Apple. I mean, that's a good way to figure out what it is. Because when he was 12, he was begging me to switch to Apple. And when he was 12, I bought all Apple and got rid of all the Windows stuff. Transferred all the files over. And that was the end of Apple. Yep. That's it. I've been out, and I'll tell you what, I love the Apple equipment. It is so good. The quality of the hardware is like unmatched. I mean, these laptops and this computer I got here that's operating this whole video podcast station, it's all running through Apple, through this MacBook, 15-inch MacBook Air. It's a MacBook Pro. It's a MacBook computer. They call it a MacBook Air. 15-inch diagonal screen. You know, from that corner to that corner, measures 15 inches. It's all solid, you know, machined aluminum. All the chips and everything. They're up on this top quadrant up underneath the keyboard, and then you got a whole bunch of batteries underneath there. The whole damn thing is, you know, 70% of everything that's underneath the keyboard is battery, and then 30% of the entire computer system is here with the memory. I got 24 gigabytes of, you know, unified memory, not storage. I got a terabyte of storage. It's all solid state, no spinning magnetic wheels, all solid state. It's the finest. It's got an M2 chip. I think I went through this yesterday, but I can just click on the little apple there and click the link that says about, and there we go. MacBook Air, 15-inch M2, 2023 version. The chipset is Apple M2 chipset. The unified memory is 24 gigabytes. The serial number of this item is right there, ending in a P. And the Mac OS system is Sequoia 15.0. I am a MacBook, I think I'm a MacBook, what do you call it? Beta tester. And I just got, you know, 15.1 loaded last night, I think. Let's do this again. And so I click on that, and then I go to System Settings, and then I go to Software, and it's checking now to see if there's an update. It's checking. It's going online right now. I am up to date as of 1:43 p.m. Your Mac is up to date. Yeah, I thought I got a download, which was installed just before I started this broadcast 3 hours ago and 2 minutes. Well, this is the second or third time that this show has gone on for 3 hours. I think yesterday, the day before, was 3 hours and 30 minutes. We ain't doing that now. We're gonna be finishing this puppy up. Let's see if there's anything else. So I showed you Trump's daughter. You know, Elon Musk has put his support for Trump. He's a Democrat. He went for Trump. A lot of people are going for Trump that are senior Democratic people. Look at this guy. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. went for Trump Friday. And they stood on stage, wherever they were, hugged each other. And JFK was actually running for president, you know, a competitor of Trump in a sense, and says, let's camp out together. I'll do everything I can to help you get elected. And he has 5, 6, 7% of people behind him. It dwindled down to like 4%, 5%. So if Trump picks up half of RFK Jr.'s supporters, that could be enough to put Trump over over the hill. One more thing to say is that we've got two active things going on in the Atlantic Basin there. The orangish looking stuff is 50%. In the next 7 days, there's a 50% chance that the clouds, the storm, there are heavy storms in that area, which is where the X is going to move that way to where the arrow is. And it's got a 50% probability of becoming a hurricane. And the yellow one has got a 10% chance. So the yellow is a new one, just got added this morning. And the orangish looking storm system was put on, like 4 or 5 days ago. So we're keeping an eye on that. So by Monday, that should have become maybe cyclonic. There's these really strong storms in these two areas out in the Atlantic. And what they're trying to tell you that it's not a cyclonic. In other words, the clouds haven't started rotating in a counterclockwise or a clockwise motion. But they have a high, I wouldn't say a high, they have a probability of becoming, a cyclonic storm. Meaning, instead of just a bunch of thunderstorms, they start swirling and generating energy in a sophisticated way. And then the storm builds up to be dangerous. Here's a radar screen I took. And you can see here are the clouds they're talking about. This is the part that's in that orange right there. So that's going to come up either right above or below, Haiti and Jamaica and Cuba. And if it's on the top side, then it may come to us. And right now, there's a disturbance right there, right over Cuba. Now, it's on the north side of Cuba. What's going to happen? It's on the Bahamas part. What's going to happen with that? I mean, it's been known where a storm starts right there and starts rotating, and boom, you get smashed right away. You don't have a week's warning. You got a 3-day warning. Whew. That's what's going on right now, and there's a whole bunch of storms that are happening right now on the northwestern part of Africa. That's where this stuff comes from. Comes straight across the Atlantic and either pounds the Bahamas or pounds us. We're supposed to have an above average number of storms. Well, we've had only one, I think. And it was coming right and it's turned right north and whacked the island out there in the middle of the Atlantic. Is it Bimini? Anyway, that's all I'm going to say. I had a little story about Larry King, and there's a little story about how they, in 1971, he went through, he had all kinds of trouble, legal trouble, 1971. Then he ended up coming out of legal trouble, ended up going bankrupt. And after racking up $352,000 worth of debt, declared bankruptcy in 1978. Lived a life and he spent 25 years with his evening show through the microphone, and these are all the telephone lines coming in, and he would talk with the public. And, he's talking with public, 35 million people surrounding his office up there in Manhattan. And little did you know he would work that, he'd have a run of 25 years on that show. And he died with an estate of over $50 million. Can you imagine? So that's it was just a story about some of these when Nicolas Cage and Kim Bassinger's also spent themselves into oblivion and went bankrupt. And some of them came back and made a fortune, and some didn't. He did. He came back and made a fortune. So that's why Larry King is there, and why my telephone disconnect. Stop it. There we go. Whew. All right. Let's say goodnight. 1:51. Been on 3 hours and 10 minutes. I feel like getting up and walking around a little bit. How about you? Let's say goodnight, and I'll give you about 30 seconds of this instrumental. The tail end of my broadcast here with the royalty-free music. It's Friday. Will I see you tomorrow? I don't know what, it's a holiday weekend, right? So we'll play it by ear. I'll let you know if I can talk. Otherwise, see you Tuesday, huh?